Time is constantly unfolding. Will we create and evolve? We must innovate now so we can leave the world better than we found it. I am your host, Saurabh Mirmont, and welcome to Avant Savant. Hello and welcome to episode 2 of Avant Savant. I'm your host, Saurabh Mirmont. Today's guest is incredibly special. His name is James Cawley, and the man is a master when it comes to selling content to people that will enable him to live his dream. He is an avid connoisseur of the outdoors. He is sponsored by some of the biggest names in digital media. We're going to talk to him about how to design the perfect life by doing what you love and going after what you love and knowing when to say no. And we're going to talk residual income in the form of stock footage. James is a master at living his life free of burden, free of bills, because he's mastered stock footage. He has a library of over 5,000 videos across multiple platforms and is sponsored by Adobe Stock. So, without further ado, let's jump in. Welcome to the show, James. Good to have you here. Tell our audience a little bit about yourself.
Well, my name is James Cawley. I'm a filmmaker out of Utah. I specialize in travel, tourism, economic development, stock media creation, and I just love being outdoors in general. That's what calls me. That's my work. I tend to have a more raw style. I don't do crazy big setups. I like to put myself out there in the setting, in the environment that I like to work in, and just kind of let that direct me, let that vibe, let that feeling, let the place call to what the film or the shot needs to be about.
Awesome. Tell us about who you work with and why you do what you do and how your love for nature ties into your work.
Well, I work a lot with different agencies for tourism and travel. Namely, I do a lot of work with Visit Salt Lake, with Utah State Parks, with Zeiss Cinema lenses, with Tiffin to promote their filters, and 90% of what I do is outdoor based, using natural light, using minimal setups, and being out in those places.
Can you talk to us a little bit about sponsorships and how that has worked out for you?
Currently, I'm sponsored and partnered with Zeiss Cinema lenses, Tiffin with their filters, and Adobe.
Can you rewind us to basically when that first sponsorship came about and what you were doing in that time period?
A lot of my sponsors, I think, work with me because I understand what they need in the end product. They're not looking just to tag along with my adventures. I'll also provide content that I know they need from a business angle. So if that's promoting a new product or a new service or showcasing a feature on a product, by being mindful about that when you're going out into the field is going to make your sponsors happy, and it's going to get you more sponsors or have your sponsors trust you more. And so I think it's very important, if you're looking into sponsorships, to what value are you providing, except for going out there and doing whatever it is that you're doing. When I got my first sponsorship, it was with Tiffin filters, and I worked for it. I went out and I spent 3 weeks shooting a nature film throughout the Southwest, where I covered everything from night stars and scenic landscapes and people doing amazing things across the Southwest environment. And in doing that, I purchased the filters and I purchased these things. I purchased the lenses, and then I showed them what I could do. And I remember walking up to my contact with them the first time I met him at NAB. And I said, check out what I've done. And I gave him a link to it, and I followed up with him, and he did. He checked it out. And after a little while, he realized I was serious about what I was doing. I wasn't asking for something for free. I wasn't asking to be named as somebody important. I was showing them that I was passionate about it and willing to put in the hard work to have a shot.
You're an avid traveler, and you're often traveling for work, if not all of your travels are somehow related to work. Can you talk about that and some of the experiences you've had while traveling?
Yeah, I travel all over, and a lot of the time it's supported by stock video creation. As somebody who's a creative and wanting to make extra income, stock is always a great way of doing that. Not only does it allow me to generate income from things I want to get better at, say it's filming people hiking or night sky time lapses. By doing stock, I'm learning to do it, and if it turns out well, I can sell that. And it's something that other people can use in their projects, and it's very rewarding to see that in everything from YouTube videos to feature films. And so a lot of the times I'll travel as an excuse to shoot stock, and it also works in great with my business because if it's something that I'm doing specifically for stock, it's something that you can use as a tax benefit, or you can use in financing, residual income for new equipment or things like that you need in the future.
How much of your stock work is landscape versus people?
Well, I would say as of right now, my work is about 70-40, or 60-40 people to landscapes, where before it was almost 90% landscapes. And really the reason is I feel more drawn to showing the emotion of people experiencing the landscapes, or people experiencing what it is they're doing in the landscapes. To me, that's more powerful than just the landscape. I used to be very inspired just to capture a sunrise coming up over the desert. But when I add somebody in there who's genuinely feeling that presence of the sun hitting their face on that morning, it becomes something much more than just a stock clip or a video clip. To me, you're capturing that moment. And I do work with a lot of non-actors. I'll work with people who are hikers and friends and bikers and climbers and people that are out there enjoying it, that can have a real physical, spiritual, and emotional connection to whatever I'm shooting. Another reason shooting in either landscape or shooting with talent, you have to worry obviously about talent releases and model releases and location releases and permits, and there's a lot of different things when you're going into a stock or commercial world that you have to deal with on both sides of that.
Can you talk about permits and what scenarios would require you to get one?
If you're going out for a commercial purpose, if I'm going on a trip to shoot stock videos or photos that I'm going to sell, it's my responsibility to get a permit through the proper venues, if that's my goal, is to go out and do that. If, say for instance, I'm on a camping trip with my family or friends and there's a beautiful sunrise happening and I take a video of it, that's a little bit different. You're technically supposed to go and file for a retroactive permit, but say you're camping out at Dead Horse Point and you film a beautiful sunrise, or you take a picture of your best friend standing on the cliff and Samsung or some company wants to utilize that, you're supposed to go retroactively get a permit. But it's one of those areas that's going to be redefined over the years as more and more people are becoming creators. It used to be that there was filmmakers and professional photographers and then amateurs, and there was nothing in between. So if you go out, for instance, and you want to take pictures on the salt flats, you need to apply for a BLM permit and you need to have a monitor. And if you're just going to go take pictures, the average photographer isn't going to do that. But you do need to be aware of permits and regulations, and especially if you're going to go into anything that's commercial, it's very highly recommended that you look into that.
And the people who are purchasing the stock footage, are they looking more for landscape footage, or are they looking for footage of people or people and landscapes? Or is there a general idea of what the market's demanding?
I would say from a sales point of view, absolutely. The ones that are beautiful get a lot of response, which I mean by that people will look at it. It'll get a lot of views. But purchasing and use, I'll see my stuff with people far and beyond utilized more than just landscapes.
And what's the process of getting your stock footage listed and sold? And who are some of the distributors that you would trust to sell your footage?
Absolutely. No, that's a great question. And it's something that I feel very strongly every creator should know, because it's great additional income. So when you're going to start looking into stock, whether it be photo or video, your first step is to put your mind in a position of who is going to pay money for this. If you go out and you shoot 10 clips of a water fountain in your local city, or a pond with ducks in it, somebody may be able to use that, but you're limiting yourself. And then if you get too specific, if you're filming very specific things, say an actor with face paint on standing in a swamp holding a pitchfork, that's going to limit you. It's very creative and very unique, but how is somebody going to utilize that in their project? The people buying these things are filmmakers looking for B-roll, for transitionals. They're looking for establishing shots. They're looking for artistic things that can be placed into the scenes that really give their film or their project dimension. And on the other hand, it's commercial use. You're looking for business people shaking hands, the happy family in a park, and the cheesy stuff you normally see with stock. And I don't typically shoot a lot of that. I'll go on and do my research and try to understand, what do people want to buy first of all, and what do I want to create? What do I want to go out there and share? So the first step is always defining what is going to bring income back, and then how do I balance that with what I'm passionate about. So on my end, it's outdoors. I want to shoot video of people camping and hiking and fishing and running and exercising and experiencing the outdoors. And I know that that's very valuable. That's actually a trend for 2019 is being in nature is something that's kind of came back and trended, and this year people will be looking for that a lot more. So follow those trends. A lot of the stock sites offer trend reports. I know Adobe Stock offers trend reports that tells their contributors, here's what people are going to be looking for. So once you do that, you have to then establish your value. I want to film hikers hiking at Arches National Park. Well, if I want to do that, I have to then do a cost comparison. What's it going to cost to travel? How am I going to pay for that actor or convince a friend to do that and sign a release? And then how am I going to pay for the location fees or the fees that Arches is going to charge to film those shots there if I'm doing everything like I should by the book? And so then that transitions into, once you shoot all that material, you load that into your stock library. There's many of them. I personally, this year, am focused 100% on Adobe Stock, where I take my clips and I upload those, and it gives me recommendations to keywords that people are searching for. So I put my clip of hikers into the system and I title it "Hikers Hiking Across a Desert Landscape," or "Explorers Exploring the Outdoors." You want to hit on words that the customers and the filmmakers are going to look for. And then you put that onto the system and you wait. You may never sell that clip. You may sell it 10,000 times. It just depends on what people are looking for and how many clips you have online. And as far as payment goes, as far as what you can earn, there's no like firm number. A lot of people ask me, well, how much can I make if I start doing this next month? Well, how much can you make as a filmmaker if you start doing it next month? It's the same question. It's going to depend on what your content is, the quality of your content, the diversity of your content, and then from there people will download it from different ranges, from $10 a clip to $100 a clip. And you may even, there's been some of my content that I've sold directly to agencies for the Discovery Channel, where they've purchased it because they want to make it into a promo, and they'll cut you a special bill because it's going to be widely seen.
Did they find you through the stock websites, or did you reach out to them directly?
So that particular instance, they found me through my social media. I posted, because I'll post a lot of my content on social media, on Facebook, on Instagram, and they found me through that, reached out and said, that clip is perfect. Can you provide it in 25 frames per second? And we could. And so we worked with them to create that promo.
Can you give us an example of what an average stock video shoot would cost if you were to stage one, perhaps in a national park, maybe somewhere like Bryce Canyon or Arches or somewhere like that?
Absolutely. I'm actually going through that right now, so that's a great example. We're shooting with Zeiss in Arches in January. And so the permit is usually $150 to a $250 non-refundable permit application fee. So what that application fee does is it asks you, or the application asks you, what are you doing? What are you wanting to film in the park? And we'll review that. And if it's approved, we'll go from there. If it's not, we just say it's denied and you lost your application fee. From there, you'd contact with them. I had a phone call yesterday, and they ask you details. Are you going to be on roads? Are you going to be involving other people? And then they'll either assign you a day rate from there, which is usually between $100 to $300 a day, and then a monitor fee, which is usually about $60 an hour. And so they send somebody with you to watch what you're doing. And depending on the type of shoot and how big it is, you may have one monitor, you may have 6 monitors. On a lot of my shoots, we usually try to get by with just one to keep it as budget friendly as possible. So when you add those together, you're already in a national park or in a BLM area or state park. You're already looking at about, I'd say to be safe, $600 to $800 to have official permission to be shooting there. On top of that, then you're going to look at actors and talent. And it really depends. If you have a buddy that wants to come and help and you're going to pay for their food and show them a good time and stay 2 extra days exploring and hiking, they may do it for free. If you are hiring a professional actor, their rates could be anywhere from $100 to $2,000 a day. And that's going to depend on their status and what their going rate is as an actor.
So what are you most passionate about right now? What project or what kind of mission are you on, or what are you looking forward to most in life? What's your next venture?
Well, for sure. So this, I would say the one that's most exciting that's coming up soon is I'm doing a 3-part series with Zeiss cinema lenses that showcases the new Zeiss CP3 series cinema lens. And we're going to be working in some really unique locations that are going to be challenging and a lot of fun at the same time. It started last winter when we went to Yellowstone, and me and my small team produced a 5-minute piece called Winter on the River, where we basically followed the Madison River up through frozen Yellowstone and tracked a pack of wolves as they did their thing and kind of explored the life and the death and the cold beauty that lives in Yellowstone at a time when there's very few people around.
That's amazing.
And so we did that, and they really liked it. And so this year they assigned me 3 more pieces to direct and produce that will be half vignette and then half behind the scenes, where all the camera crew following me as I show how I produce these. So the first one's going to be in Arches National Park, where we follow a adventure photographer as he captures winter environments and really showcases what the feeling of being out there in the winter with this camera is when nobody else is around. The second one is going to feature a Native American boxer who trains and works as a up-and-coming boxer in the Monument Valley area. So that's going to be very visual, and I'm very excited to work on that, where we talk about how his cultural past and his spirituality and everything that's important to him ties into this modern day sport. And third, we're going to be going down to Saguaro National Park down near Mexico, where you see the iconic cactuses and cacti and the cowboys and the miners and the donkeys that carry the ore. And so we're going to be focusing on shooting blue hour, shooting morning and sunset shots. And I'll be kind of showing the behind the scenes of that as we film with some setup actors, the cowboy shot in the sunset. And so that 3-series piece will be really unique and have some depth to it, just besides being a tutorial. It'll have a lot of, I think, emotional connection.
And how long do these generally take to put together from start to finish?
Each of these typically take me between 3 to 4 production days and then 2 travel days on each end. And in post, they usually take me 1 to 2 weeks to finish. And then I do all my own editing and color and shooting. I do a lot of it. I have a great team. I work with a lot of talented people. I know we've worked together on things.
Indeed.
And so it's having that small group of core people that really make a project really pop.
Totally. I remember my question. And we could just talk about Adobe Stock, but who sets the pricing for your material?
So pricing with stock material is set based on usually the user's discretion. They have a price point out there that for 4K you're going to charge on average $70 to $85. For HD you're looking more at the $40 to $55 level nowadays. In a year that's going to change. I'm sure there'll be 8K on there someday. But a lot of sites will you can choose to have them set the price for you, or you can set it. A lot of the going rates on certain sites are just set in stone. So depending on the site that you are with, and there's many, they'll set it for you, or they have a going rate for a specific size.
Excellent. Do you recall a time when you fell in love with nature, or what persuaded you to spend so much time in the outdoors?
Yeah, so if I go back into my childhood, some of my earliest memories are spent with my grandfathers, as they would either take me hiking or fishing or exploring growing up in Idaho. And so from a young age, being out camping, and I think as my emotions were developing and getting tied to some of those things, such as a sunset or the peace of, a winter's evening, or hearing the grass, there's something about that just screams out to me, and it's kind of the fuel that drives me when I put something together. That's the energy that's put into it. And so, when I look back, it's always just been there. I've done a lot of film work. I've done corporate film work. I've done cinematic movie type film work, but I feel most at peace when I'm with my camera and a very small crew, and just taking in and feeling what I'm trying to capture. Not trying to recreate it, going into it prepared, but feeling it and trying to capture it while the feeling's in all of us.
What's your passion project? What's the one thing you want to do more than anything else?
If I could do anything I wanted, I'd want to travel the world and really kind of delve into the issues that trouble the world or plague the world on many senses, from humanitarian to nature involved. I would love to tackle the issue of social tourism, where we have a lot of people visiting Instagram locations, for instance. And I've seen a lot of these areas that are very precious to me over the years become very degraded and commercialized based on oversharing on social media. There's places I would go to find that spirit and that peace, where I go now and it's just a whisper. It's not there anymore because it's so oversaturated. And that comes with what we do. I mean, we create, and I'm myself, I can say that I'm probably contributing to that same problem in a lot of areas. When you're creating things and inspiring people to go out, you can't necessarily complain about them being there. However, I think we can be responsible when we visit these areas to think about that. I think of some of these areas that I visited 10 years ago, and there was, sagebrush and cryptobiotic soil and things surrounding an arch. And you go now and it's just a cement patch. People are climbing on the arch. There's people shoulder to shoulder, and nobody's really respecting the feeling they're after getting that shot to put on Instagram. I see vans back up right into the soil or over the rocks off the road, so they can open up their back doors, sit in the back with their feet out, and get that Instagram shot of the vista in the background as their feet are in the shot. And they did all that in 10 minutes without any feeling or attachment, just to be able to share something on Instagram. And I think that kind of counteracts the whole outdoor and being connected with nature movement. If you're just after an image, it really takes away from what you're doing.
You were mentioning something before we started recording about people and how, before maybe 10 years ago, you'd get to a very sacred place and it would just be you and it would be nature and very serene. But now it would be you and then 20 other people. And can you talk about the effect that that is having on the environment and how we can help protect these sacred places?
Absolutely. I think a lot of people, and including me, I see somebody post something beautiful or a location I've never seen in the state of Utah, for instance. And I want to know where that is. I want to visit that. I want to have a connection. And a recent movement that a lot of Instagrammers have been doing is they don't list the place's geolocation. So they won't tag it and they're not sharing it. They're not driving people to the location. And it's not because they want to keep it to themselves and keep it as a place that only they are going to take photos. It's that they want to limit some of that impact that they could personally cause driving people to that location. And when you show up at a location, you should be very aware to not disturb it. You don't move rocks or go and pull a stump out of the ground so it looks like a better foreground that's naturally there. And when you're going to go climb out on a ledge or stand out somewhere, you can see the trails that you're making and forming. And to the extent with larger film crews, they need to be aware of that. If you show up say you drive out into the middle of the desert and you're setting up for a period production where you have people walking around, think of the impact that one crew can make in a small area, bringing things back and forth and up and down and actors back and forth. When you leave, you can see the impact of that area. So be very aware that you're not in like a area with cryptobiotic soil or an area that has a very rare plant. And also think of all the trash and garbage that you're bringing. Make sure that what you're bringing is at the very least biodegradable, and try to plan ahead for those type of things, because I've been to a lot of these photography locations and there's garbage everywhere. And even if it's not on the ground, you go to the parking lot and it's just overflowed with garbage that you're bringing to a location. So as we appreciate these places and as we continue to visit these places and continue to try to take photos of them, we need to think, how can I help? How can I, reduce my impact to these areas? Because I want my son to be able to go there and have the experiences that I did. And I do feel like we're taking away from that at some point. Not to sound like so much of a, naturalist, hippie or something here. I'm really just saying that as filmmakers and photographers, we do have to think about the impact that we make on the land, even if we have a permit visiting places.
I know you travel a lot with your family. You have a young boy, and it's very important for you to be able to be active with him and show him all the beautiful things that the world has to offer. So can you talk a little bit about your means of travel with your family and how important it is to you to have your family with you when you travel the world for your work?
Sure. So with a lot of my clients, all my clients are for the most part tourism or outdoor recreation based or economic development. So I got into this because I had a passion for being out in nature. And as I became a father, that passion wasn't overshadowed, it grew as I have a son that I now want to take and share that with, and a wife I want to share that with. And by bringing them to these places, it means so much more to me. And it is very challenging sometimes when I'm dragging along a 8-month-old to Manhattan to do a project downtown. But now when I look back on it, it's so rewarding. The memories that we had and the struggles, it's there. Or having a screaming baby as you're flying to Maui and in the middle of the night, and then figuring that all out. But then again, standing on top of a volcano as the sun comes up, holding your child's hand and showing them at this young age and really developing what I had when I grew up and what tied me to that is something very rewarding. And that's why I'm doing this. That's why I have a job as a filmmaker, is because I want to spend every minute possible with the people that I love and want to be around while I'm doing the things that I want to do. A lot of times I'll get offered a project that is very financially rewarding, but I try to stay away from those as much as possible and follow the path that I want to be on which I'm drawn to, which is the outdoor side of things. And I find the more and more I do that, the more and more I make doing what I like. The more I get distracted going off of that path, the more I don't, get the contracts and the gigs and the jobs of what I want to be doing. So my word of advice to anybody, family, no family, family in the future, if you're wanting to be a filmmaker and make money, you can make money, but make sure you're doing what you want to be doing. Otherwise, money won't matter. Because if you're making a ton of money, but you hate your job and it feels like a construction site, then what does that matter? Just go after what you want to be doing, and eventually you'll make money doing it.
What's a question you wish people would ask you more?
I would say, kind of along the lines of what we were just talking, I think what people need to ask themselves more than ask me is why, from a filmmaker and a creative standpoint, is why am I doing what I'm doing? Because if your answer is, I want to be famous, or I want to be rich, or I want to be well known when I walk into a place from my local community, then you've already failed, because you need to go after what you want to do. So I think you need to ask yourself, what do I want to be doing? As you asked me, if I had $1 billion in my bank account. If I had $1 billion in my bank account, I would travel, experience amazing places around the world with my family, as I tried to help with as many humanitarian and natural issues as I could with any influence that I may have gained throughout the years. So ask yourself, what is it that you want to do if you had $1 billion? And just go after that.
That's incredible. How do you impart that on your son to inspire him to ask that question at a young age?
Yeah, he's just getting to the age now where he's talking, and it's true. You're very impressionable from a very, very young age. And so as we're raising him, we make it very obvious that in our family, material things are not important. He doesn't need to have 8 toys. 1 toy is good. And why does he like that toy? What do we do with that toy? We have conversations. We try to, he's not to the point where he's talking back and forth with us yet, but we try to engage him and explain the things and ask him, how does he feel about this? We live out in the country, and we're way out in the country. I open up my back door and there's nothing for 100 miles, and that's how I love it. That's why we moved out there. We have a lot of coyotes. The other day we had a mountain lion under our travel trailer, and every night the coyotes howl, and my son started saying coyote, and so we explained to him what coyotes were and where they live, and we open up our door at night and he likes to say good night to the coyotes as they're howling in the distance. But just these little things, by teaching the little ones that there's more to life than just the material things, that you need to understand that spirit, that coyote howling is, they may be a vermin, they may be out there attacking people's chickens and things, but just that little tie into the wilderness, there's something in us all that wants to be part of that. And so trying to embrace that with him as he grows up is going to be interesting and very rewarding.
That's incredible. Have you always wanted to live out in the country?
I have, yeah. I grew up in Idaho, and I spent a lot of time with my grandparents who lived out in the country. And as soon as we were doing well enough financially, that's right where we went. We went from apartments to buying a house where we had 3 neighbors. And currently, it takes me to get here about an hour and a half. We drive in and out of town, and it's challenging sometimes, but being out there and being able to go out on your back porch and see the Milky Way is incredible. And to me, as I've talked throughout this podcast of how important it is to me to tie back into nature, having a little bit of that where I live at my house is very important.
I could not agree more. So tell us, where can people find you online?
You can find us at centerstar.io, and that's where a lot of my work is housed. My Instagram account is James D. Cawley, So at James, letter D as in David, Cawley. And on that account, I showcase a lot of my work along with behind the scenes, what cameras I'm using, what filters I'm using. And so you'll see a good mix of finished product and then also what gear I'm using to accomplish that. And that's really my two main places. I am on Facebook, same thing, James D. Cawley, and but I spend most of my time probably on Instagram.
What's something people don't know about you?
I'm actually really into, I love to go caving. And I don't know if that's something you've ever done.
Sounds amazing.
That's kind of a unique thing. And it's one of those situations where you're going into a very unique place that not a lot of people have ever been. And I was fortunate enough when I was in college to discover a cave and up in the mountains, and we brought in a geology team and we mapped it and explored it. And it was such an amazing and unique feeling to know that I was the first person on the planet to ever stand in a certain place. And we know that because we cleared a passageway and we crawled through it. And I crawled through first, and as I stood up, there's this room about the size of a football stadium. And just to stand there and know that more than likely you're the first person to ever stand in that spot was just kind of a feeling that kept me going and kind of forced that exploration mentality throughout the rest of my life.
Dude, that's incredible. You founded a cave.
Yeah, I'll take you there sometime.
Dude, I'd love that. Any last words you'd like to say to our listeners?
I would just say that in closing, the most important thing that you can do for yourself from a creative, professional, personal, and spiritual way would be to just go after what you feel is right and know is right in your heart, and do what you feel called to do, whether that's in the art world, fashion, or outdoors, or music. Go after what really calls you, and you'll be rewarded for it because you'll put your soul into it, and you'll feel that.
Amazing. All right, Mr. James Cawley, thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
There you have it, episode 2 with James Cawley. If you like this one, make sure you leave a comment or subscribe, share it with a friend. Somebody might like it. If you're interested in stock footage, I can't imagine a better resource than this podcast and James Cawley himself. So make sure to check him out on social media. His links, how you can find him, is all in the description of this podcast. As always, I'm your host, Saurabh Mirmont, and this is Avant Savant.